Virginia 79, NC State 58. Mississippi State over Ole Miss 81-69. Rhode Island 76, St. Joseph 68. West Virginia 89, St. Bonaventure 61. Virginia Tech down TCU 69-65. It was Xavier 82 and New Hampshire 65. NHL Vancouver now under 500 for the first time this year. Canucks lost in Buffalo 5-3. Washington shut out New Jersey 4-0, snapping the Devils' 4-game win streak. Dallas 2, St. Louis 1. Edmonton over Chicago 4-2. Jack Nicklaus started 1994 with a victory in the Mercedes Championships in Carlsbad, California. One-stroke win over Bob Murphy. This tournament had all the 93 winners on the senior and regular tours, and Phil Mickelson won the regular event in a playoff with Fred Couples. Police in Detroit may be closer to finding the man who attacked figure skater Nancy Kerrigan. I'm John Stashower, Sports Radio, ESPN.
When you're traveling for business or pleasure, what's the first thing you look for in a hotel? Well, if you enter the stadium-sized lobby with fountains and gold things or room service with caviar and steak tartare, then I hope you find it's worth what they charge you. But if your answer was more like a spacious room with a convenient work area, a pleasant restaurant, a whirlpool, mini gym, and everything you need at a reasonable price, then I know where you can find it. Courtyard by Marriott. So call your travel agent or Courtyard at 1-800-321-2211.
I want this car, and I want it now. My first new car. The first one that didn't smell like old socks or have French fries underneath the seat. That I didn't have to scrape off the I Love Fudge bumper sticker. That I didn't have to disinfect. My first car that wasn't someone else's first car. This one's new. This one's mine.
GMAC knows. When you want the car, you want the car. And you can arrange GMAC financing or leasing fast. Right at your Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac, or GMC truck dealership. GMAC, the expressway home.
You know when your throat's so dry and scratchy and almost feels like you swallowed a cat? You need medicine, not those candy cough drops. You need Cepacol lozenges. But what if your throat's so raw it feels like you swallowed a slightly larger cat? Then you need really strong medicine. You need Cepastat lozenges. Cepacol for sore throats. Cepastat for really sore throats. Use only as directed.
Do you know there are only 44 sounds in the English language? 44. And when you learn these 44 sounds called phonics, you can read and spell almost everything. That's why Hooked on Phonics is so successful. We've set these 44 sounds to music, making learning to read simple and fun. So get Hooked on Phonics and take the mystery out of learning to read. Call 1-800-ABCDEFG.
ESPN Radio, Chuck Wilson, Tony Bruno, Doug Brown, as we wrap up a Sunday night into Monday morning on the East Coast and another weekend of ESPN Radio. How about Heath Schuler turning pro? That certainly helps at the top of the pro draft. And Tennessee star quarterback announcing that he would forego his senior year. He's going to be one of the top picks in the draft. That's something that I think it was pretty obvious that he would end up doing. But that's going to have a big impact, and Tyrone Wheatley will make his decision known tomorrow, and you got to figure he's going to be coming out too.
There were some weak years there for quarterbacks coming into the NFL, but the last year, two, including this year, pretty good.
Probably the best classes, as Mel Kiper was talking about, since 1983.
Mel Kiper, draft expert. And you know, it is funny, because when we had Heath Schuler on earlier with us here on ESPN Radio, he's in a bizarre situation because the Cincinnati Bengals have the number one pick. Many presume because they're so cheap that they're not going to use that number one pick. They're going to trade down, get a couple of other players, maybe a lower draft pick. But Schuler, according to Mel Kiper, could go as number one depending on who drafts. There's so many teams looking for a quarterback. He could be either number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, based on the possibilities of trades. But when he was on with us earlier on ESPN Radio, he did explain why he decided to come out early.
Actually, when I was 10 years old, I set a dream, and I set the goals that I wanted to abide by for the rest of my life. And I had the dream of becoming a professional quarterback, and it was at my hands, at my grasp, and I just wanted to reach it as quickly as possible.
And he's going to have that opportunity now, and he's going to be well paid to do it.
And he did, to give him credit, he did mention the money factor when Tony asked him that question about going from 1 through 5, depending on what trades are made. He did say, well, I'd rather be up higher because of the money. Yeah. At least he's honest.
And he's also smart. The Phoenix Suns, how concerned do you think the Phoenix Suns ought to be, Tony, about Charles Barkley? Out indefinitely, MRI test showing Barkley's leg injury, a slightly torn tendon in his right thigh.
I'm not a doctor, although I do play one here on the radio. It's, how do you know? I mean, that they first thought it was a sprain or just a slight pull. Now it's a partial tear. They're not going to do a surgery, obviously. They took an MRI. They say he's going to miss 5 games, right? Or 5 days.
Well, going on the injured list means he automatically will miss 5 games. But if I'm the Phoenix Suns, I'm approaching this one way and one way only. If this is Charles Barkley's last year, which for everybody believes it will be, although he hasn't officially announced it yet, you got to wait until this guy's completely healthy, because there's no point in bringing him back for regular season games. The team's going to have home court advantage for the first round of the playoffs, and beyond that, it's just a question of who's healthy and who isn't. You got to have Barkley healthy for the playoffs.
A nightmare for Los Angeles Lakers coach Randy Funn, suspended for a game without pay, fined $3,000 by the NBA for bumping a referee during a game against the LA Clippers. He sits out the game and he watches his team fall behind tonight. It was 47-22 late in the first half. It was, 51-25 at halftime.
That's right.
Halftime.
They had 11 points in the first quarter, 14 in the second quarter.
Wow. Now, they only ended up losing the game by 6.
Right, 95-89.
To the Spurs, so it looks good on paper, but they were crushed, really, during the bulk of the game at home.
By the way, the 25 first-half points is only tied for 3rd fewest in NBA history. 2 teams have done worse.
And we go back, right, Utah Jazz, or the
New Orleans Jazz, right,
yeah.
and Milwaukee also.
I want to give some plaudits to a guy who did a pretty incredible thing, D'Antonio Wingfield, for the Cincinnati Bearcats, had sat out a couple of games. Has a stress fracture in his right foot. He had 18 rebounds in the 2-point defeat at home to Alabama Birmingham. So he played. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Talk about
a stress fracture.
Absolutely, and talk about also, we discussed the injury situations among the top 25 in basketball, but it's a jumble right now. It's impossible to tell who's where in the rankings. So let's get some good news now on Nancy Kerrigan and the story, of course, in Detroit over the weekend, the attack against her. There is a videotape. There are actually a number of videotapes that are being reviewed by the Detroit Police Department, but there's one particular tape in which the face or part of the face of the assailant of Nancy Kerrigan is visible. The Detroit Police Department and the FBI working hand in hand on the case right now. Deputy Chief of the Detroit Police, Benny Napoleon, was with us earlier here on ESPN Radio. We asked him exactly how clear that video is.
Well, from a layperson's perspective, it's not very clear to me at all, but from the technical standpoint, the technicians who worked on the video seem very confident that we can enhance it to the point that we will be able to come up with a clearer image.
The tapes continue to come in. In fact, Deputy Chief Napoleon told us that they had received another tape as late as several hours ago today, and they continue to try and review tapes to see if they can get a clearer image of this guy who attacked Nancy Kerrigan.
Well, this week we will find out about the Baseball Hall of Fame. Obviously, Steve Carlton's going to go in, but I hope Orlando Cepeda gets in his last year of eligibility with all of the voters. And we'll see what happens. Necro, Sutton, there are lots of eligibles this year. And, of course, the NFL playoffs next weekend. And, Tony, you've already said the New York Giants and Houston Oilers would meet in the Super Bowl, so you're still alive.
Well, of course. I'm a football expert. But I did make
Tony
this prediction.
Bruno.
Football expert. I made this prediction many weeks ago now, not one of these bandwagon
No,
jumpers.
not at all. You waited until Houston had 8 or 9 straight wins.
That was before they went into Pittsburgh. Don't give me any of this garbage. That was before they went into Pittsburgh. Of course they were on a streak.
Sure, that's why you picked them. Of course, I understand
That would have been easy to pick Buffalo and the Dallas Cowboys, wouldn't it have? Isn't that the chalk pick? How many people picked Houston and the Giants
after Houston had won? Well, you didn't pick it 2 months ago.
You did?
You picked Tony. You picked Houston 3 weeks ago when they won 8 or 9 straight games of that. I think
that
it was 9.
Before they went into Pittsburgh, and before they played the game against the Jets. two pivotal games that came much later.
Can I just say
Against really a tough opponent, as it turned out.
Can I just say that I really hate it when you guys fight? It really disturbs me psychologically.
Well, you have a week's rest.
Next weekend, hopefully it'll be great playoff games again. We'll be back to bring them to you. Well, at least talk about them next weekend here on ESPN Radio.
Have a good week, guys.
Portions of the preceding program have been pre-recorded. This is the ESPN Radio Network.
Disaster strikes somewhere every single day. Which means every single night, someone needs food, shelter, and a place to rest. Please support the American Red Cross. Call 1-800-842-2200.
Hundreds evacuated due to flooding of the low-lying areas surrounding.
Because every night is another night. Someone needs your help. This message is brought to you by the American Red Cross and the Ad Council. What is a man? A man stands up for himself. He relies on his own strength, makes his own breaks, and he has the right to a fighting chance in life. Doesn't a baby just starting life deserve the same fighting chance? If you're a man with a woman who's pregnant, it's up to you to help make sure the baby gets one. Help the woman you're with get the care she needs. If she doesn't, the baby may be born sick or too early, so small and so helpless it can hardly hang on to life, let alone fight. Every man has the power to give a helpless child a fighting chance. Call 1-800-232-3237 for help. 1-800-232-3237. This message comes from the Department of Health and Human Services, the March of Dimes, the Ad Council, and this radio station.
Every time a forest burns, it's like another piece of music in the world is just silenced. Be careful with campfires in the forest, and remember the words of Smokey Bear. Only you can prevent forest fires. Brought to you by the Advertising Council, USDA Forest Service, and your state forester.
Mutual News. President Clinton is in Brussels for the start of a NATO summit in about 2.5 hours. According to White House correspondent Peter Mayer, traveling with Clinton, the president is continuing to pressure Ukraine to dismantle its nuclear weapons.
Taking advantage of what one White House official describes as the competition among former Soviet bloc countries, the U.S. is offering Ukraine what Russia and Belarus are already getting, a presidential visit. President Clinton could make a surprise stop in Kiev on the way to Moscow Wednesday if Ukraine agrees to turn its nukes over to Russia for dismantling.
Gasoline prices continue to tumble. The latest Lundberg survey shows gas fell 1.25 cents a gallon the past 3 weeks. The wildfires, which have blazed across more than 1 million acres near Sydney, Australia, have slowed with decreased winds and some light rain. The fires, however, are not out. About 200 homes have been destroyed. I'm Fred Lowry.
If you need extra strength medication to treat itchy skin, you're not alone.
So uncomfortable and irritating, you can't believe it.
Lloyd Reiser Jr. of Battle Creek, Michigan, discovered new extra strength Gold Bond medicated powder.
It took the burning and itching away almost immediately.
Extra strength Gold Bond has extra strength triple action. We take our proven absorbing action, then add more pain reliever for medicating action, and extra zinc oxide for drying action.
I was just so happy to get out of pain.
New extra strength Gold Bond medicated powder. Use as directed.
Right now at Value Right, you'll enjoy big savings during our Dollar Days sale at all participating pharmacies. Here's just one example. Accutrim caffeine-free maximum strength appetite suppressant is priced for extra savings. So this week you can pick up Accutrim in the 20-count tablet size for only $4. Use only as directed. Just one more reason you can't go wrong at Value Right. You'll find us in the Yellow Pages.
Following a 5-day lull, supplies are again flowing into war-ravaged Sarajevo. The city's main airport was reopened on Sunday following repairs in the wake of destructive Serbian shelling. Supply flights provide virtually all the food and medicine available to Sarajevo's 380,000 residents.
On Sunday, Vice President Gore noted the Clinton administration is still considering airstrikes to protect Sarajevo's residents from stepped-up Serbian attacks.
They were authorized last August when the siege of Sarajevo was especially intense, and now in the wake of these last few days, certainly we are going to be talking with our allies about where we go from here.
Bosnia is expected to be high on the talks agenda at NATO. No arrests yet in last week's assault on figure skater Nancy Kerrigan, but police have uncovered some videotape of the alleged assailant. The tape was shot by a production company and gives a brief glimpse of the man. The videotape will be digitally enhanced to generate a clearer image of the suspect. As for Kerrigan, she went back to practicing on Sunday for the first time since the attack last Thursday. Afterwards, she was asked how she felt.
Better than yesterday. My swelling's gone down my knee, and just feeling stronger and easier to walk. So I'm going to be back sooner than everyone thinks, I hope.
The same man who parachuted into an outdoor boxing ring last November was up to his old tricks on Sunday. This time he was arrested after circling the Los Angeles Coliseum in a motorized glider. L.A. Police Detective Glenn Day says the man faces a nuisance charge.
He was charged with a violation of the Los Angeles Municipal Code, which was interfering with a professional football game. Essentially, they had to stop the game for a couple minutes.
The game, an NFL contest, was a playoff game between the L.A. Raiders and the Denver Broncos. With news, I'm Fred Lowry.
From the achy breaky to the tush push, country line dancing is sweeping across America like an Oklahoma dust storm. And now you can learn America's most popular new dances right in your own home with this great new video from Quality. Meet Diane Horner. Diane's unique teaching method will have you country line dancing in minutes. It's easy and fast. In no time at all, you'll be doing the electric slide, slap leather, honky-tonk stomp, tush push, and of course the achy breaky. We start with simple individual dance steps and patterns at a slow beginner's beat. Then put them all together into the full dance. Finally, we show you the complete line dance, repeating the patterns over and over so you can practice right along with us. Order now and we'll send you a second hot country video. Country partner dancing, absolutely free. Here's how to order.
To receive quality special products, country line dancing for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling, call today, 1-800-352-8999. Order today and get country partner dancing free. Call 1-800-352-8999.
I'm Detective Lee Schweitzer with the Chesterfield County Colonial Heights Crime Solvers. This week, Crime Solvers is asking for your help in solving an arson fire that occurred in Chesterfield County. On December 12th, around 10:30 in the morning, the Chesterfield Fire Department responded to a vacant house that was on fire at 6501 Watts Spring Court. Investigators found that the house had been vandalized before the fire was set. They also found that there were two separate fires set in different locations of the home. The house was totally destroyed by the fire, an estimated loss of over $100,000. Neighbors advised the detectives that this house was a hangout for teenagers in the neighborhood. If you have any information about this arson fire, or know about any other crime in Chesterfield County or Colonial Heights, call Crime Solvers at 748-0660. You won't be asked to give your name or testify in court. If your information is helpful to the police, you could receive up to $1,000 in a cash reward. I'm Detective Lee Schweitzer with the Chesterfield County Colonial Heights Crime Solvers.
AM 910 WRVA is WRVH Richmond.
It's a new generation of University of Richmond basketball. The Spiders will turn it up on the court, and the new head coach will talk it up on the air. Join Coach Bill Dooley for the Spider Sports Line, Monday night at 7:05. Tune in and call in at 345-0910. Brought to you by James River Petroleum Company, distributors of Quaker State Motor Oil, by Richmond Ford, and by Commonwealth Propane. The Spider Sports Line, Monday night at 7:05 on AM 910 WRVA.
Good evening, America, and welcome to Sports Late Night with Marty Ronick. As a 14-year veteran in broadcasting, Marty has covered everything from the NBA to the NFL to Major League Baseball. In order to join Marty and his guests, just dial 1-800-697-2346. That's 1-800-MY-RADIO. And now, the American Sports Radio Network is proud to present Marty Ronick.
Welcome, friends across America, to Sports Late Night. I'm your host, Marty Ronick, live from Las Vegas, Nevada. And sitting across from me, I get the great pleasure of Lee Klein, who normally joins us on the telephone live from wherever he happens to be. Well, he just happens to be in studio with me today, Lee. Been a pleasure.
I just wound up here. Go figure.
Hey, I know Las Vegas has been good to you. You told me last night Minnesota was going to get their clocks cleaned by at least 6.5 points. And you also told me that the Raiders were going to beat Denver. So you were right, 2 out of 2.
Well, I got lucky, but the Raiders weren't lucky today. The Raiders really outperformed the Denver Broncos in the entire second half and really blew them away. And the Giants caught a break on the fumble around the 10-yard line and recovered that when Minnesota was going to go in to possibly tie the score at 17. Great games, though. We have great games to talk about. We have a lot about the NBA to talk about. We have a lot to talk about tonight.
Of course, we cannot talk unless we have a very receptive audience out there, and we do have a lot of people that like to join in, and we're going to make them a major part of the show. In fact, after we do the scores and give you a couple news items, we're going to take some phone calls, and we're going to give you out this toll-free number to call anytime during the next 2 hours that we're on the air. 1-800-697-2346, 1-800-MY-RADIO. Easy to remember. Now we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll look at all the scores, some of the happenings in the world of sports on this Sunday going into Monday morning on the American Sports Radio Network.
Hello there, everybody. This is Mel Allen. I've got a special offer on out-of-print collector baseball cards. Now you can own 200 genuine collectible baseball cards for the unbelievable price of $9.95. It's a collector's dream come true. Each set contains baseball cards going as far back as 1986 and including Topps, Donruss, and Upper Deck that are no longer being printed. Over the years, the value of baseball cards has skyrocketed, and while no one can guarantee baseball cards will go up in value, we can guarantee each set will have star, superstar, rookie, and all-star cards. So take it from me, Mel Allen. At this price, these cards could be gone.
Call 1-800-882-3131. 200 genuine collectible baseball cards, no duplicates. Print condition, only $9.95 each plus $2.95 postage. Limit of 5 per household. Call now, 1-800-882-3131.
Hi, Ted. Boy, I'm glad you're driving today. I'm beat.
Hey, you've been dragging a lot lately.
I know. I just can't keep up. Long hours at work, commuting, kids, working on the house. You're in the same boat. How do you do it?
I run out of steam sometimes, too, but my health food store owner recommended Escalation from Enzymatic Therapy. Escalation gives me energy I need to conquer the day.
I'd just like to survive at this point, but I don't like taking chemical stimulants.
Escalation is an all-natural, over-the-counter approved stimulant made from plant extracts for a natural energy boost. My wife even uses it as part of her diet program because she doesn't want to lose energy while she's losing weight.
Guess I could use a little help there, too.
Best of all, Escalation is completely guaranteed. Feel healthy, feel great, or your money back. No other company guarantees their products like Enzymatic Therapy. We can swing by the health food store on our way home, okay, Bob? Bob? Maybe we better go right now.
Welcome back, America, to Sports Late Night with your host, Marty Ronick, a 14-year veteran in sports broadcasting, and he's waiting to talk to you right now. Give us a call at 1-800-697-2346. That's 1-800-MY-RADIO. And now, back to Marty.
Welcome back to Sports Late Night on the American Sports Radio Network. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We bring you the very best in sports. And of course, on Sunday, we had 2 excellent playoff games. Of course, if you're a Denver Bronco fan, it wasn't so excellent, but hey, Lee, 42-24. I guess the Raiders are starting to make believers out of a lot of people, including myself.
They played a terrific second half. Hostetler was on. They actually had a running game for the first time in many weeks, but it did take a combination of about 6 different guys to make up that running attack for the Raiders today.
They did have a running attack. 42-24 was the final score. Napoleon McCallum, 3 touchdowns in that ball game. And, of course, the New York Giants in a very cold game in the Meadowlands beat Minnesota 17-10. We'll talk a little bit more about those. On the NBA front, we had some interesting games. The New York Knicks beat Portland 99-85. It was Phoenix 122-107 over Golden State. And, of course, in that ball game, Kevin Johnson and Charles Barkley sat out. And Charles Barkley, by the way, was put on the injured list for 5 games minimally.
Well, that happened the other night in Minnesota, and as we saw tonight, it didn't hurt them any. Gerald Mustaf started in his place. They just activated Cedric Ceballos. So although they're not as strong as they would be with KJ and with Charles in the lineup, give it another week or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it takes to heal, they'll be right there for the playoffs.
And here's a surprise. The Lakers almost set an all-time record for least amount of points in a half. They had 25 points at halftime against the San Antonio Spurs. And believe it or not, folks, they made a comeback. They almost came back and shocked the Spurs. They lost 95-89, but they were trailing by 28 points at one time.
And they were down by 26 at the half. They were down 51-25, and at one time it was 15-11 in that ball game. You know, we know that this year it's incredible the amount of teams that are not scoring 100 points, but to score 25 and a half, it's just no excuse for that kind of poor play. In addition to that, Randy Funn was not coaching tonight because he was serving his 1-game suspension that he occurred the other night.
And that was for bumping a referee. Don't bump referees in the NBA. Okay, I think we're going to go right to the phone lines, Lee, since you say that you want to talk some basketball. And our first caller just happens to be from Los Angeles. Must be a Boston Celtic fan. His name is Thomas. Thomas, how are you?
How you doing, Marty and Lee?
Real good. How's it going, buddy?
All right. I kind of missed your show on the boards in the NBA on Saturday and Sunday morning.
You know what we're going to start doing, though? Now that football's winding down, Thomas, Lee and I are going to make a real effort to start getting a lot of the top-name ball players as guests on the show, and we're going to talk more and more NBA basketball with you.
Okay, I like that. I was listening to you last night, and I heard you mention about Chris Ford said that the Pants was going to roll. And I couldn't get through, and I wanted to comment. The Celtics started out pretty good, and now they starting to fade now. They just really just fell off. I kind of been wondering with this lineup. I think he should have been starting Rick Fox at the number 2. And letting D. Brown come off the bench for that. D. Brown has been inconsistent this year, on and off again. And he has a good game here and a couple of bad games here, then he'll bounce back. And I think that I like the play of Douglas. He's been pretty consistent. And the Chief, when he plays, he's been consistent too. And Gamble, he's been, his usual self. And I'm just concerned about Pinckney. I think maybe he probably could start. I would put McDaniel in. Pinckney, I think he still needs some time coming off that the injury. I don't think he's really been up to par like he was right before he got injured. And Ross, he seemed to be starting to fade a little bit too, that 0 for 14. Then I think I just checked the stats from the other game. He was like 4 for 11 or something like that.
Well, let me put it this way, Thomas. This is a team, and I'm very close to this team. I really like some of the individuals on this team. But Chris Ford has really gone out on the limb with a lot of these guys, and he's giving a lot of these guys a chance to, let's say, take charge. Nobody has taken charge, and this team has been losing games. And it's not so much from, let's say, the standpoint of, there is potential on this team. You mentioned a lot of good ball players, but it seems like nobody is stepping forward. And for this team to win, everybody has to be clicking on all cylinders for them to win ball games. With their 13-20 record and the way they played over the last dozen or so ball games, they went on a West Coast trip here where they were getting beaten brutally by 15, 20 points every ball game. And Chris Ford got them back home, and they even lost a couple games at home.
Yeah, I'm surprised where they're losing up the Garden. From what I hear and see, if they don't shoot 50%, then they don't win the game. If they don't start off good, then they're not going to win.
Well, the Celtics were 4 games above 500 in the early part of the season, and now they're 7 below. That's 11 game swing, and they really are going south, Marty, at this point. They have talent on this team. Sherman Douglas is starting to play the kind of ball that we all knew he could play several years ago when he came out of Syracuse. D. Brown has been very erratic, as you mentioned earlier in the call here. You can't put it on the shoulders of just a 40-year-old center. and a couple of guys hoping to get together. Yes, it was a tragedy of the Reggie Lewis situation, but as Marty mentioned, there's nobody stepping up to the plate, so to speak, to take charge of this ball club, be a spokesperson for the team in the dressing room other than the coaching staff. And what Marty is alluding to is that Mr. Ford says heads will roll based on one fact. He doesn't see the heart and the soul of what traditional Celtic pride is anywhere in that clubhouse with any of the ball players, and that's the one main consistent thing for the last 40-plus years that Red Auerbach has instilled and will not be tolerated, because Red has let a lot of good players go over the years if they, quote, didn't fit the image of the Celtics. And right now, there aren't too many of the ball players that are fitting that image, and that is the major problem on that team.
I thought Gamble would step up. He's been pretty consistent, shooting a pretty good percentage. I thought he would step up, but he's more like, I think, a quiet leader who just, goes by example. He puts up some good, consistent numbers, but nobody else steps up. You got the X-Man who he could bang kind of down.
Well, let me put it this way. When X-Man is your leading scorer at 14.2 points per game,
you're in trouble.
You're in serious, serious trouble. And that's the thing. They got 6 guys averaging over 12 points a game, but nobody is a go-to guy. And in this league, all you have to do is shut down Sherman Douglas, and that pretty much shuts down everybody else.
I have a question to ask you before we leave you. How is it that you are allowed to live and survive in Los Angeles being a Celtic fan?
I'm dying. I'm dying out here. I got one question before y'all let me go.
Right.
How would the Celtics be if they still had Danny Ainge? I saw that performance he had not too long ago with 33 points, I think. How would the Celtics be with him now?
Danny's just a role player, and even when he was at his very best, he was nothing more than a guy that would step up and complement some of the other guys. But, I don't think he would make that much of a difference on this present-day team. You take Reggie Lewis out, though. When Reggie died, I would say the Celtics really took about 2 steps backwards.
You're going too far back with Danny Ainge. At the time that Danny played for the team, he was a critical part of that. He was a cog in that particular wheel, but not in today's wheel of who today's players are. He blends in fairly well. He played very well with Portland. I'm really surprised that Portland, Marty, let him go a couple of years ago.
Well, that's because they went out and they picked up Mario Ellie, and, they were going after other players. It's just, again, economics. Danny wanted a little bit more money than they wanted to give to him.
Well, when Danny's hot and he puts up the three-pointer, he is good.
He is. Thomas, thanks a lot for the call. Hang in there. Tell you, that's just what we're seeing, though, with a lot of teams, Lee. The Lakers, they bottomed out. The Celtics.
I mean, a good hard look at the Seattle Supersonics, the Phoenix Suns. It's no longer, well, I shouldn't say no longer. They are surprising us. The Chicago Bulls, less Michael Jordan. But along with the music, it's a new day, it's a new age, and it's different teams like the Houston Rockets.
Okay, and we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to get to more phone calls, more talk on the Sports Voice of America. This is the American Sports Radio Network.
My name is John Stewart, author of the DOS Tape, 2nd edition, the audio cassette for beginners, and the new audio cassette called What is Windows? Recently, Home Office Computing Magazine took a look at our DOS Tape, 2nd edition, and this is what they said. Quoting now, "This audio tape offers everything a flat-out beginner needs to know." Unquote. Well, I guess there isn't much more for me to say. It's an audio cassette. It's for anybody who uses any kind of IBM or compatible computer, and it has a reference card and a money-back guarantee. It's better than all those books out there, and certainly better than those videotapes, and it only costs $15.95 plus $3 shipping and handling. That's all there is to it. The DOS tape with quick reference card and money-back guarantee is only $15.95 plus $3 shipping and handling. Not available in stores. Call 1-800-647-TAPE. Ask for Operator B. 1-800-647-TAPE.
Everyone who cashes their paycheck at the Gold Coast and plays Paycheck Video Poker is a winner because the video poker machine doesn't have any losing hands. Now, some hands are better than others. For example, 7 lucky Las Vegans have hit a royal flush and taken home an additional $10,000. Not bad for a little free play at the poker machine, huh? But listen to this. Recently, Tom Childers drops by to cash his paycheck and hits a royal flush in sequence. Wow! Here, Tom, take home this $100,000, please. Now, really, isn't it time for you to consider cashing your paycheck at the Gold Coast? Who knows? You might go home with a little surprise for the family. Tom Childers did. Way to go, Tom. Congratulations, and thanks for playing Paycheck Video Poker at the Gold Coast Hotel and Casino, West Flamingo and Valley View.
If you're a mutual fund investor or just thinking about it, the Wall Street Journal now gives you the most comprehensive daily coverage of mutual funds published anywhere. The Journal tells you each fund's investment objective, current share price, previous day's performance, and even its year-to-date return. In a single week, you can track the results of more than 2,800 funds over a month, a year, 3 years, even 5 years. Plus, the Journal actually rates a fund's performance against the competition. Subscribe now and receive the Wall Street Journal's Guide to Understanding Personal Finance. This 173-page powerhouse of information helps you manage your money and investments more profitably. It retails for $13.95, but it's free with your paid subscription. Call now and get 10 weeks of the Wall Street Journal with the mutual funds coverage you need and the valuable guide to understanding personal finance, all for only $36.
Call now, toll-free in the continental U.S., 800-631-1000. That's 800-631-1000 for the Wall Street Journal.
Welcome back to Sports Late Night. I'm your host, Marty Ronick, on the American Sports Radio Network. Lee Klein sitting in studio with me. And Lee, we've got a lot of phone calls coming in. And, of course, just wanted to see how your weekend went here in Vegas.
It went fine, Marty. I watched the tube, saw everything that was ever done on sports off of every satellite dish, tried to get some sleep, but it's very difficult.
It sure is in this town. Okay, let's get back to business here since we got Lee's whole itinerary for the weekend. We're going to head to Salt Lake City. We got Travis on the line. Travis, how are you today? Maybe we don't have Travis.
Should we count to 7 to see if it's that time delay thing?
Okay. Travis, are you there?
Yeah.
Good deal. How you doing?
It worked.
Marty, it's always an honor to talk to you. Can
Well,
I talk
thank
about
you.
the Jazz?
Yeah, let's talk about them. What's wrong with this team? Sometimes they look so tremendous, and other times they look like just a mortal team.
We did have Jeff Malone, and a lot of guys had the flu.
Yeah, it's funny. I've noticed over the last 2 to 3 weeks, Lee, we're seeing that flu bug. When it hits one guy on a squad, seems like 2, 3, 4 guys are getting it all. I mean, it's almost contagious.
In fact, I think it is, Marty. That's why it's called the flu.
I'll tell you, this is going to be a long show, Travis. Help me out.
Don't they get flu shots or anything?
Huh? I would, it's funny, but I think sometimes when you get a flu shot, I've heard more people getting the flu after
From
they
the
get
flu shot.
From the flu shot.
That they just got. Actually, they're playing very good ball. I mean, nobody expected them to be a great ball club, but right now, what are they, Marty? What are they, 20-10?
They were over 20 wins a week ago, but they lost to Miami, and of course they lost the other day. They lost 2 games in a row at home, then they went into Seattle, got blown out. So, it's been pretty rough. Karl Malone had 3 games in a row where he didn't score 20 points. I mean, that's just not vintage Karl Malone.
But they'll be there. They'll make it into the semifinal round of the Western, as they always do every year.
That's been their problem, is getting through even the first round of the playoffs. But, of course, you got to like the fact that they're getting some good performances out of guys like Felton Spencer, and their bench has been really solid, Travis.
Yeah. Do you see him making a trade to the overstocked the small forward? And Luther Wright, I mean, he misses an airplane, and he has somebody go give him a sandwich at New York and all that.
It's just not a real responsible kid. I would think if they're going to make a trade, it's going to probably hurt him more than help him, because right now This is a team that is over the cap, and anything they do, it seems like, anybody's there's just not a lot of teams that want a deal unless they can get the better of the deal right now. So I don't think they're going to make a deal. If they can find somebody in the CBA or somebody that might be cut by a team, I just don't see the top teams getting any better through trades. Do you, Lee?
No. When Luther Wright was selected in the draft this past season, I questioned that because I'd seen Luther play many times at Seton Hall, and he just didn't seem to be of what I would consider NBA quality, at least currently. He was vastly overweight for the NBA. You had to get into shape. He's seeing some time, but I just don't think he's, quote, the wave of their future.
Have you seen... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Travis.
Have you seen Brian Russell play? That guy's awesome.
Yeah, he's doing a very good job. In fact, here's a guy that is getting more playing time than some of the veterans like Tyrone Corbin and some of the other fellows on that team. So, he must have really impressed Jerry Sloan and staff.
Have you guys heard any trades or anything?
Well, you hear the same old deals where Joe Dumar's name and, some of the veterans that... these rebuilding teams are trying to, maybe get draft picks or make some kind of move to help themselves down the road. Now, if Utah were to make a deal like that, again, who are they going to move? What are they going to do? Draft picks? I just don't see...
But most rosters are pretty well set. The Derek Harper trade that just occurred, it's been over a year that people have been talking about Derek and wanting to trade him. All the rumors with Isaiah Thomas have finally been put to bed. He was never moved. When you take a good look at it, there's 99 rumors to every one trade that actually takes place.
You know what we're going to do, though? We're going to get either Frank Layden or Scott Layden in the next couple of weeks to come on the show, and maybe we'll just kind of hammer them and see if there's anything they can tell us, okay?
Okay.
Appreciate the call, Travis.
Bye.
Bye-bye, buddy.
Bye.
The kid that just called Travis is a football player. Pretty darn good football player in high school.
Well, good for him.
I think he's going to get a scholarship to one of the big universities, so be interesting to see where he ends up.
Well, if he's a quarterback, he can just stay right there and go to BYU.
Yeah, I know. They need one, don't they? Is that the music already? We're halfway through the hour. 30 minutes past. We're going to let all of our affiliates identify themselves. Then we're going to come right back, take some more phone calls, talk some more sports right here on the Sports Voice of America. This is the American Sports Radio Network, and we'll be back in 10 seconds. We'd like to welcome you back to the American Sports Radio Network. I'm your host, Marty Ronick, Elite Klein.
I'm your drummer.
God, that was good. That was totally unexpected.
Where did that come from? Where in the world did that music come from, Marty?
No, that was your guitar. You're really a part-time guitar player.
I once was with Kiss.
There you go. Okay. We've got some good people calling up. Right now, we got a guy from Mobile, Alabama by the name of Greg. He wants to talk some football. He's going to kind of change the gears a little bit.
All right. Let's go to him.
Let's say hi to Greg. Greg, how are you this morning?
Sick.
I like to talk about the two NFL games today.
Go ahead.
In the first game, you had the Giants. They played pretty good in the first half. They had a few good drives, but they never did get any points. They only got 3 points, and they were getting booed at halftime.
Oh, they certainly were when they walked off the field, weren't they?
Yeah, and in the second half, they came out and played Giants football, running the ball at Rodney Hampton, and they got that 51-yard run, and I believe that set the tone for the game, and that's why they won. And the defense really played good. They kept McMahon running from the whole game, I think. And I think if they go to Candlestick Park and run like they did today with Rodney Hampton, if he gets over 100 yards, and Phil Simms come back with a little play-action pass, I think they can keep the 49ers off balance and possibly upset them in Candlestick.
Well, yeah, that's a tall statement, Lee.
Yeah, but he did say upset, so the caller is definitely aware that they're going to be the underdog in this game. San Francisco is much more capable of putting more points in one half on the board than the Giants are in all four quarters. That's how strong the 49er offense is. On the other hand, the Giants have the fifth best defense in the NFL. 49ers have the number one offense. That's a good, interesting matchup. The bad part of this, if you're a Giant fan, is that the Giants are not capable of putting many points on the board themselves. They stay in and win the close games. It's not that often that Sims can throw the ball that often to put that many points on the board. And if you're going to have the running game with Rodney Hampton doing another 100-yard plus, it's going to eat up a lot of the clock, and that's the way the Giants work. They like to take 3/4 or 2/3 of that game and do ball control. That's the only way that they can possibly win that game next week. I admit that there's the possibility, but I just can't see it happening. The 49ers are too strong on offense, regardless of how bad their defense is.
Okay, in the other game you had today with the Raiders and who did they play?
Denver
Broncos. Yeah, Denver Broncos. I think that I was so happy about the Raiders finally getting the running game in the second half with Napoleon McCallum. Now, I believe that's the first time they ever had more than 2 touchdowns in a game by a runner. I hope they can carry the momentum to Buffalo with them next week. It's going to be real cold, and Hostetler is going to have to depend on the running game instead of throwing in that wind to his receivers, and I hope they can pull it off next week in Buffalo.
Well, there's another team you're talking about that has trouble scoring points is Buffalo. So, Lee, we had talked about the Raiders situation going into Buffalo. They don't play well. In fact, you mentioned the Green Bay game where they were shut out totally.
They do not play well in adverse conditions. And the way the weather has been this past week in Buffalo with a 1.5 feet of snow and wind chill and winds, which are the most unpleasant set of circumstances to play anything outdoors, I cannot see this to be any much of a scoring game, which gives both teams an equal chance, with the exception of that Buffalo is used to this kind of weather. They may not like it, but there's much more